This is Michael Woodward, and this is Season 3, Episode 217 of the Jumblethink Podcast.
T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Jumblethink Podcast, where we interview amazing entrepreneurs about their journey of turning dreams and ideas into reality. Along the way, we're going to share some tips on how you can turn your own dreams and ideas into reality too. Our guest on today's episode is Rock Thomas. More about Rock in a moment. Whether you're a longtime listener or new to the Jumblethink Podcast, we encourage you to go wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe to the Jumblethink Podcast. For iTunes, jumblethink.com/iTunes. And for Spotify, jumblethink.com/Spotify. It'll take you right to the app, right where you can subscribe, right where you can leave a rating and review. Now let's jump into today's conversation. Hey there, welcome to the Jumblethink Podcast. My name is Michael Woodward. I am your host. We have a great episode lined up for you today. Before we get rolling, we want to thank our sponsors for today's episode, Mighty Travels and OpportunityInChina.com. Mighty Travels can help you find the best fares for your next trip. Go check them out at mightytravels.com/jumblethink. We also want to thank OpportunityInChina.com. They help students find great educational experiences in Asia or teachers find the right career teaching at universities around the world. You can check them out at OpportunityInChina.com. More about both sponsors later in the episode. I am super excited about today's guest. His name is Rock Thomas. He is the founder of Rock Thomas International. You've probably caught his Goalcast video. It's impacted over 70 million lives, and it created the hashtag I Am movement. Now, who is Rock Thomas? From humble beginnings on a small Canadian farm near Montreal, Rock Thomas became a self-made millionaire, running several successful businesses and 6 award-winning RE/MAX franchises. After he achieved so much epic financial success, showered with accolades and awards, Rock embarked on a quest for personal growth, traveling the world and studying with acclaimed teachers, people like Tony Robbins, T. Harv Eker, Deepak Chopra, John Gray, David Wolfe, Jack Canfield, Dr. Wayne Dyer, and Stephen Covey. He absorbed success systems, life and business strategies, and countless life-changing experiences. After assimilating all he'd learned and talking with people from all walks of life who were seeking more too, he founded Rock Thomas International to bring the best of the best to the world. His programs blend his extensive knowledge about personal development with cutting-edge success formulas designed to produce whole life wealth. We are live with Rock Thomas. Rock, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Hey, I'm excited to be here, Michael.
You know, I love your Goalcast video. That's how I knew you. But going deeper into your content, reading your materials online, watching other videos, it's just been really fun to vicariously get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah, well, you know, when you're charting your path and just trying to survive, you don't realize that you're creating a story that others can lean into later. So it's kind of been only later in my life that I went, did overcome some things. Yeah, I did learn to go from working hard to working smart. I did have some mentors that made an impact on my life. And when I started to unpack it, I was able to share it with other people, and other people were able to accelerate the learning curve. And then you get excited about sharing with people because people have these breakthroughs. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it really, really is. I love your story, but some people listening may not know that story. So I want to hear a little bit of your backstory of how you found entrepreneurship, how you decided, hey, you know what? I don't know if I want to go the typical path of getting a job, being an employee, but I think there's another road for me.
You know, I don't know if I found entrepreneurship or if entrepreneurship found me.
Right.
You know, growing up in a farm, you learn how to be resourceful. And most of the time when people that I coach or you coach or we train or teach or speak to, what they'll usually tell you is a lack of resources they have, a lack of time, a lack of money, a lack of knowledge, a lack of connections. And I think it's really that they've had a lack of situations that force them to be resourceful.
Wow.
when I was growing up on a farm, we would have the pipes would freeze in the freezing cold in the winter in Canada, and we would have to carry buckets to the fields.
Yeah.
Well, initially I'd say to my dad, well, I don't want to do that. It's hard. And he'd say, yeah, but the horses don't care about the weather. They care about living and surviving. We have to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that I learned in life that there's always a way. It doesn't matter whether the pipes freeze or whether there's a snowstorm, you find a way to take care of the animals. You find a way to plant the seeds and harvest. And I just brought that into my world. And then when I went out to get traditional jobs, like work as a bartender or cut lawns or work at McDonald's, I was so much more resourceful than other people. I just kept on getting promoted, and I kept on, just lapping the field, that I thought, well, I could actually run my own business. And it's kind of what happened, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it completely does. And I think that's one of the marks of entrepreneurship, is that so many people who find that role usually find it because of creative thinking and being able to problem solve, and realize that just because you hit an obstacle doesn't mean that that's the stopping point of the story. And for you, that's very much true, that you've had to reinvent yourself throughout life, but you've also had to overcome obstacles. Tell us a little bit about early on, you tell in the Goldcast video about how you had the roadblock of identity. And I know that that's a big part of your story. So tell us a little bit about that revelation of like, okay, maybe I can rewrite how I think of myself.
I think that there's events that happen in our life. My parents got divorced when I was 5, and I moved in with my mom, and she was a gypsy. She was rarely home. It was back in the days when you didn't have to be home when your kids came home from school.
Right.
So I would steal money from her purse or whatever was lying around and go buy candies. And I became mischievous out of a need for attention. So she decided to ship me back to live with my dad, who had remarried. And now I was the youngest of 7 kids. Well, I thought I didn't have attention when I was with my sister, with my mom. Now I was the youngest of 7. And it was really hard to get attention. But more than that, my father labeled me as a thief, because my mother reported back to him that I stole money.
Yeah.
Anytime anything was missing in a house of 7 children, guess who was blamed?
Well, of course you.
So what do you think other kids do? They purposefully stole things knowing that I would be the scapegoat.
Right.
So I ended up getting lots of punishment, lots of, sentencing to the room, being abandoned, being banished, being physically reprimanded, given extra chores, kind of the Cinderella of the household. And therefore I felt abandoned emotionally. I felt alone. I felt like I wasn't worthy. And our parents didn't have a lot of money. We ate, but by the time I was around 10 or 11, I had to work extra jobs, shoveling driveways and things like that at different people's houses to have money to buy my own clothes.
Yeah.
So when you go through that, you wonder whether, I think your parents' job is to make you feel safe. At least that's my belief. And failing them to do that, your brain scrambles to survive.
Yeah.
And I started to think, if it's going to be, it's up to me. And I started to look for ways to be safe, ways to survive. My brother beat me up. He called me pizza face. He called me bone dog. He taunted me with his little motorcycle, let me sit on it, then shove me off of it and spin away and spin dirt in my face. And so I had a choice, which is fight or flight, shrink down and become this introvert and this person who was abused, or step up and find my power. And fortunately, I did through sports. And ironically is that I spent so much time running away from my brother, I became really good at football, running away from other people. So when I learned that I could get significance and attention from being really fast, I doubled down on that, and I practiced more and more, and I got really good at catching the ball, because to me it meant survival. It was like my get out of jail free card.
Right.
And I became really good, and then everybody wanted me on their team, and I got picked first, and that fed my sense of survival and significance. And now I was willing to dive for balls that nobody else would dive for, which made me even better. And then I got kind of my, men look for a place to win.
Yeah.
If you can't find a place to win as a man in this planet, it's a lonely frickin' place. So that was the beginning of me finding a place. And then when I started to work outside, I didn't know how hard I had worked on the farm and what work ethic I had developed. So when I went to work at McDonald's, I was able to do the job of two people. I got promotions, and then I started to get promotion after promotion, and people wanted to hire me everywhere, and I was making more money. It kind of led me to this path of accelerated success, at least for working hard. And then later I had this life-altering event in my late 20s I can tell you about if you want as well.
Yeah. And I remember reading your story, and you were talking about you end up in the world of realty after a weird situation with your dad where you go back to take care of him as he's dying for cancer. And then you go back and you just feel devastated, and you end up in real estate. There we go. There's the word I was looking for. And you end up in that space, and you have a mentor that kind of calls you out, saying that working hard isn't the right answer here. There's more to the story. Tell us about that.
If there's anything that I realized is that, who you surround yourself with is going to dramatically impact your inner narrative, the way you talk to yourself. And I just had people talking to me that, were mostly raised on a farm. So work hard, and 2x4s and goats and decks and painting. And so my brain was programmed that way. And then this guy came along. He was a CPA. He was, he dressed well. He presented himself well. He drove a nice car. He had a nice family. They all worked in the family business. And he would have me over to his house. And it was nothing like I was used to, where there was respect and honor and tradition. And he said when he saw, because I think successful people can recognize talent.
Yeah.
And he saw in me the potential, as I tend to today see in many other people potential, and he just called it out. And he says, listen, if you're willing to be coachable, I can take and transfer the skills you have from working hard and your discipline into another industry in sales. So at first I doubted him because nobody had ever said that to me. I'm like, What do you mean? You're talking to me? And then later I gave it hope, and he fed it. And the thing is, if you're going to be mentored, what is really important is that somebody stands alongside you very closely. It's almost day in and day out where you can reach out, text them, ask them a question, because you're going to doubt yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
When you expand into a new version of your own identity, you're going to doubt yourself all along the way. So, maybe you've run an 8-minute mile and you're going to try to run a 7, and you're wondering whether your heart's going to explode or whether you're what's going to happen, you don't know. But if somebody's running alongside you and goes, no, it's okay. Yeah, you're out of breath. It's okay. Yeah, you're sweating profusely. That's okay. Don't worry. Yeah, your thighs are hurting. Yeah, no problem. Keep going. Keep going. That reassurance he gave me probably for a good year. And I went from the worst agent to selling 32 homes, and then 45, 65, and on to 100, which virtually broke every record. I think that the next closest agent was around 35 homes, and I was selling 100.
Wow.
And everybody was wondering whether I had 3 heads and how I did it. But at the end of the day, it led to a complete transformation in my life. In the book, The Millionaire Next Door, they say that most millionaires have this one calculated risk that they could take. And he offered to sell me the business. And I reluctantly said yes. I was afraid, but I trusted him.
Yeah.
And I trusted that he trusted me. So I thought, if he believes I can do it, then I'm going to lean into it. And I wish people would find a mentor that believed in them and looked them in the eye and said, you got this, because it totally transformed my life. And from the time I was living on my mom's couch. And it sounds like such a cliche story, but after paying off my father's debt and moving back and losing my job and suing the airlines, etc., I got evicted from my apartment. Within 5 years, I had bought the company. Wow. And I was now making $1.3 million a year, which for me, a little farm boy, was totally shattered the way I looked at the world. I had a bit of the imposter syndrome going. I was like, is this really happening?
Yeah.
But I wish it for a lot of people, because it's possible. And most of us think we're not capable of half of what we are.
Absolutely. And I want to get back into your story in a little bit. Before we do that, tell us a little bit about the business you're building. You've written books, you're speaking, you're doing a lot. So tell us about what you're doing now.
Yeah, well, I believe that there's phases to enlightenment. And I mean, it's just my personal take, but I think the first thing that we can all benefit from in doing work is to forgive ourselves and to forgive others for things that have happened. We live a lot in regret and guilt.
Yeah.
I think that's an important phase. The other thing is to learn to surrender to what's happening, because a lot of us resist. We wish things were differently. We spend a lot of time going, I wish this wouldn't happen. I wish, instead of, just it being more in acceptance. And then when you get to that, I think you can get into a place where you utilize what is, instead of, going, okay, I missed, the flight's delayed by 2 hours. I guess I'll make the best of it, but begrudgingly. Yeah. Instead, step into it with positive anticipation. Like, I guess I'm going to meet somebody. This is super cool. Yeah. What's going to happen? And it literally happened to me like 6 months ago. I had this flight delayed for 4 hours. So I started walking around the airport looking for somebody. I bumped into John Assaraf, and then I was able to get him on my podcast. But I walked up to him like I was meant to meet him, because I set that anticipation. He greeted me like I was supposed to go up to him. So that third piece is about utilizing whatever situation you're in. A great athlete, a quarterback, does not bemoan a bad call or an injured player. He just looks at what's available to him and he makes the best of it. And I think the best people do that. And then the last piece, to answer your question, is when you've kind of got those things on a track, I don't say figured out, you start to want to give back. You start to want to share. You start to want to, help somebody else ride the bike that you love riding. Yeah. And that's the phase that I got to later in the last kind of 15 years, but primarily the last 6 years, when I started my mastermind groups, of seeking out those people that truly want to grab life big. And I started a tribe of healthy, wealthy, generous people that choose to lead epic lives and don't apologize for being awesome. Yeah. And that's led to the most fulfilling part of my life, because the conversations that happens with those people are that of resourcefulness, that of utilizing what's around you, that of forgiving and forgetting and moving on and doing bucket list adventures and giving back and having authentic communications and relationships, and having the fierce conversations that require brutal honesty, where I can say to my staff, my teammates, my players, my colleagues, listen, frankly, you suck at that piece there. Right. And let somebody else do it, because you're not happy doing it. We know it. And thank you for trying, but you're not good with paperwork like I'm not. Let somebody else that's really good at it do that. And you come over here and you deal with the people. And people get to do what they're good at. And they have a more fulfilling life. So I've helped 40 people become millionaires by making them conscious of passive income vehicles while not giving up their health or their relationships. So it's been a fun experience.
Wow. Wow. All right. So for you, there have been multiple seasons. You were just talking about that in your life. Right now, in what you're doing and what you're creating and the lives that you're touching, how are you finding purpose in what you do?
Well, again, I think that in life, you don't live a balanced life. I think you purposely live a unbalanced life in different areas of your life. So I like to be a little bit obsessive on things. So I might, for a month or two, I go to Asia and I work on, my health. I go swimming. I go to a boot camp for tennis. I go do meditation. I might work on my health and spirituality. I might go on a 7-day cleanse. So I kind of purposely take a deep dive in a couple of areas of my life. I divide my life into 8 areas, and I set goals every week by looking at the one sheet that we've created. Yeah. And then now I'm going through a period where, we're in a little bit of a growth stage with a few of my businesses. So I'm very focused on that, but I'm also traveling less than I used to. Okay. So it's business driven, and it's also a little bit of homebody, a little bit of staying balanced, having my morning and evening rituals a little bit more congruent with the way I like it, instead of being in hotel rooms all the time. So I just think you go through the different phases. And the biggest thing for me is, to be able to give back. That fulfills me the most. And I get to do a lot of that with the work that I do.
Yeah. And then for you, we all face challenges. What's the one challenge you're currently working to overcome in your business?
I think that finding talented people that can maintain your vision, in other words, communicating your vision, and then giving them the training, because it's sometimes just that they haven't, like I'm what we call a high D in the DISC profile. Okay. I'm a visionary when it comes to the book. What's the name of it?
Strength Finder.
Yeah, there's those, and there's another one. But anyway, I tend to have this belief where I think people can read my mind. So I'm like, okay, let's charge the hill over there. But what I didn't tell them is that, there's 17 steps and that there's landmines. But in my mind, they know that because it's obvious. Yeah. So sometimes, we charge the hill and people get blown up or disappointed, or I get disappointed, and I have to remember I've got to, take the time to share the vision. So I'd say finding talent and finding people that I can train for that particular niche and then grow it in that way. So those are the challenges we're facing right now because we're growing a lot.
Yeah. And what's the next big goal you have for the business?
So the thing that we're working on is dealing with social media.
Yeah.
And the landmines that go with that,
For sure. For sure.
Facebook changes their algorithms and finding people. I don't know about you, but I've gone through 3 or 4 people that they keep on coming and they go, "Hey, Rock, you got a nice website, but the people that are doing it, they're missing this, that, and the other. Hey, Rock, you're doing some nice stuff on social media, but they're missing that and the other. If you would just do those things, you're going to crush it."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm so ignorant. Okay, let me hire you." And then guess what?
It doesn't
work
do
out after 3-4 months.
Yeah.
So then somebody else comes along. "Hey, Rock, your website looks pretty good, but you know what? They're missing there and that." And I get hooked in every time. I'm like, "Okay, got it."
Yeah.
So I've done that 4 or 5 times at $15,000 or $20,000 a pop.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, is anybody in their integrity, or is it me that's ignorant, or are my expectations too big? So have you ever had things like that happen?
Oh yeah, all the time. And we have clients that face that, and so often like clients go, "Hey, I've had such and such company that said they're going to do X, Y, and Z," and we're like, "Go for it." And then they come back and go, "Can you fix everything that's broken now?" Or that kind of thing. So we experience that all the time with our agency.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing. And it's like a love-hate relationship, right? I mean, it's so cool that we can communicate with social media and reach so many people. But then if you don't do it consistently and you don't do it certain ways, then it doesn't work as well. And sometimes I just want to like pack the whole thing up and go golfing. And then other times I'm like, but there's a lot of lives I want to touch. So candidly, that's the biggest frustration, Michael.
Completely understand that for sure. We'll be right back with Rock Thomas as we go into our second segment. We go deeper into this conversation and continue the conversation. We want to take a moment and thank our sponsors for today's episode, Mighty Travels and OpportunityInChina.com. Here's a little bit more from our friends over at OpportunityInChina.com.
At the dawn of the 19th century, forward-thinking people moved to the commercial centers of Europe. Moving into the 20th century, America welcomed millions into the land of freedom and opportunity. It is now the 21st century. Many of the successes and fortunes of our generations will be made in China. To learn how you can seize opportunity in China, follow the Opportunity in China podcast. The Opportunity in China podcast is available anywhere podcasts are streamed, or you can visit our website at opportunityinchina.com.
We also wanted to thank our friends over at Mighty Travels for sponsoring today's episode. Here's a little bit more from them. How much time do you spend looking for the right flight for your trip? Do you spend hours searching all of the different travel websites only to find out that once you booked your ticket, you missed out on a better price? Well, our friends over at Mighty Travels are here to help you. They want to make sure that you get notifications in real time so that you can score the best tickets at the best price, saving on average $190 per ticket. Well, they are doing cool stuff, so you want to make sure to check them out. Swing on over to mightytravels.com/jumblethink. That's mightytravels.com/jumblethink to learn more about how they can help you know when the best fares are hitting the market so you can grab them up before they're gone. Now let's jump back into today's episode. We are back with Rock Thomas. Okay, Rock, I know some people are going, this is sounding cool. I want to learn more about it. You have a free book online on your website, The Power of Your Identity. You have some great resources there. You're out speaking. How can people find and connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, the best way is to grab that book for free, rockthomas.com. Get the book, and any social media handle will find me at Rock Thomas. And I've got some free stuff online, and they can dig a little bit deeper if they're interested in some continuing education with some of the products we have as well. They'll find it easily through my website or through the social media.
I love that. And it's a great book. So go check that out. Check out what he's doing and make sure to connect because there's a lot of value in Rock's story. But beyond that, some insights that will absolutely change your mind. So you need to go check those out. I am a big fan of Simon Sinek. He says start with why. I have another friend who's written a book called What's Your What? And all these people are saying this is where you need to start. Start with why. Start with what. Start with how. Start with whatever. But you really are a believer in the power of identity. And I think you can't do why or what or how if you haven't figured out who you are. So talk to us about identity and how that's a great foundation for everything else we need to answer.
Yeah, I like the way you set that up. I mean, you've heard of the be, do, have. So
Yeah.
if you want to have something, you want to have $1 million, you've got to do things that create value in the world. But what kind of type of person is going to do things that creates value in the world? It comes down to how you see yourself.
Yeah.
And we all describe ourselves with thousands of miniature labels. I'm lazy, I'm a morning person, I'm ugly, I'm too short, I'm not good with numbers. And we don't even realize it. It's like somebody goes, hey, do you want to go swimming? Oh, no, I'm not a swimmer. Do you want to go hiking? No, I don't like hiking. We're constantly describing ourselves in a way that limit ourselves.
Yeah.
So when I discovered this, it was actually born out of pain. And a lot of times your lessons come out of pain. Is my brothers called me pizza face. They laughed at me. And for many years, I even tried putting on women's makeup and hiding and getting up in the morning and looking to see if I had another pimple to see whether I should go to school or not. And
Wow.
stopped going to school because I was afraid people would laugh at me. And the more that I made it big in my head, the more the pimples felt bigger on my face. And I actually came across a picture just the other day because I'm moving of me when I was modeling when I was 17 or 18. And it's not nearly as bad as I thought. Not nearly as bad. But in my mind, I blew it up.
Yeah.
So what did it mean? It meant that I went around from basically that adolescent age all the way till pretty much my late 20s until I met my first mentor that taught me how to reframe this with this fear that I was ugly. Constantly, like an inner narrative running every single day, 365 days of the year. What are people thinking?
Wow.
So I only imagine, and when I do my talks, I say to people, I go, everybody has a pizza face.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody has some tracker running in their brain that says, I'm not enough. When people are going to find out that I'm ADHD or I'm dyslexic or that I'm depressed when I'm alone or that I have a pornography addiction or that I eat 3 bags of chips and watch 4 hours of Netflix every night. And everybody has that thing. And you're as sick as your secrets.
Yeah.
So the power of your identity, the book was born out of me realizing that you can choose a new identity.
Okay.
And Oprah's done it, and a lot of people have done it. Athletes do it, and it's Michael Jordan going down. People assume these identities,
Yeah.
but they don't transfer them permanently. They just borrow them part-time. And I'm saying, why not install them permanently? So I chose Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
And I thought that he was ruggedly handsome. As the prompting of the coaching from my coach came, he says, how would you describe someone you admire?
Yeah.
Instead of this smaller version of yourself. And I said ruggedly handsome. And as I said it, my face lit up and he goes, that's it. Say that again.
Yeah.
I said it again and it lit up and my shoulders kind of went back a little bit. And he goes, that's it. I want to say it again, say it again, say it again. And he NLP'd me, which is basically just to take the words and associate to them enough that they become part of how you see yourself and repeat it over and over again. It becomes who you are.
Yeah.
So that's what was the birth of the book, because then I went on to go from being overly serious to more playful, from being somebody who felt like I was destined to be working hard to working smart. And I just kept on shifting the different parts of my identity from being broke to multimillionaire, from being dyslexic and a bad speller to a best-selling author. And I just reinvented the different parts of myself and continue to do so. And that's just been a real gift. And when my Goalcast video came out, I was blown away because they told me about 2 million people would watch it.
Yeah.
And it went viral. In fact, I believe it's still the most successful viral video, original video of Goalcast with over 80 million views now.
Wow.
And I've had over 10,000 messages coming in of people who it's radically changed the way they see themselves.
Yeah. And how you see yourself, how you think about yourself really creates the future that you can create, because it either limits you or it sets you free. Is that a fair assessment of what you're saying?
Yes. Now, if you're, 4'3", you'll probably not be the dunking champion of the NBA. But they're, within the context. That's why I encourage people to do things, behavioral assessment models, because for me, I'm a big picture, fast talker, fast mover. And if you try to get me to wind down and go into details, it won't last forever. I'll get frustrated.
Yeah.
I became a pilot at the age of 16. And by the time I was 17 and a half, I stopped flying because I got so bored after takeoff and landing that I stopped paying attention.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to kill myself and other people if I do this. I am not born to do this, to look at these, numbers and just scan the dashboard over and over again. I want to go, climb and dive and do cool stuff. So I'm like, and I don't have the right behavioral assessment for a pilot.
Yeah.
So work within the confines of know who you are, but then lean into who you can become at your highest self. And so many times, Michael, the labels are being offered to us just by bad programmers. And what I mean by that is, I was at the mall the other day and this woman had her 2 kids and she's like a single mom trying to do shopping, and the one child was asking to get out of the carriage.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, you can't. No, you can't. No, you can't. No, you can't. And the kid asked like 20 times and she finally threw sugar at the child.
What?
Yeah. And the child stopped, but you could see the child was broken a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Child just wanted to be a kid, and the mother just kept on saying versions of no you can't, no you can't, no you can't. Now if the child says one day my dream is to become an actor, she may have that narrative like no you can't, no you can't, no you can't in her brain.
Right.
And what are the chances that she takes action and lives into her higher self? Pretty low.
Yeah. For sure. I want to go a little bit deeper into this. You mentioned about your mentor challenging you, and you go, I need to figure out who that is for me. And you chose Clint Eastwood as kind of that identity that you said, okay, that's ruggedly handsome. How can people start reshaping this? It's one thing to talk about and say you can do it. It's another thing to say, what are the steps to do this? So how can people start going, I need to redefine my thinking. I need to reframe the bad things that have happened to me, or the experiences, the beliefs that I have. What are the steps they need to make that a reality instead of just a theory?
Yeah, great question. So there's a couple of steps. First of all the steps are in my book. So if they go to rockthomas.com, they can download it. There's 5 steps in there, but I'll go over them briefly. And then got to understand that there's a few layers to this, because I talk about when people have had extreme emotional events. Let's say they've been raped or abandoned or car accident, or their best friend embezzled from them. The nervous system, it's like fuses break in the nervous system. And sometimes it's really hard to rewrite that part because there's trauma there.
Yeah.
So you could say to a woman, go into that house and you're a realtor, go in that house, do an open house on your own in that seedy part of town. And if single men come in there, you'll be fine. Her nervous system is going, screw you, I'll be fine. I was raped once. I'm never putting myself in a position. And to tell her to change her identity around that would just be foolish.
Yeah.
So what you do is, in The Rise of Superman, they talk about transformation happens at best in a learning environment of 4% outside your comfort zone. So in my coaching and trainings, what we do is we're very conscious of that. So you have somebody drive home a different way, brush their teeth with their left hand, put their pant leg on the other side. You start to train the brain to be comfortable with things that are mildly uncomfortable but aren't dangerous. Make sense?
Yeah. Things that push their boundaries but aren't going to hurt them in that process.
Right. So then eventually you start to ask questions like, what do you want? What do you really want? What would you love? What are some of the dreams? And you start to bring back some of the things that people really want. And then you compare it to how they've described themselves. So you'd say, well, I keep on hearing you say that I'm a procrastinator. And they go, I just never get around to things. And I go, okay, were you born that way? And they're like, no, I guess not. And I hear you say you're lazy too. Were you born lazy? And they're like, when I think about it, no. So somebody suggested that label to you, so you can choose to change the label. And that's when the NLP comes in. So if you say, let's say you describe yourself as a procrastinator and lazy, On one side of the paper, you list all the words that are unresourceful.
Okay.
And then on the other side, you start to give the antithesis. So what would be the opposite of somebody that was a procrastinator?
Somebody that's very active in doing it. They're right on
Yes.
top of it.
And ideally, you choose the word that resonates with you. So it
Right.
might be, I'm an action taker. I'm a doer. I say yes in the moment and take my first step forward right away, whatever it is. And then they start to re-language their story, their internal story, so that they can have a new story. And that's what we talk about, affirmations or incantations. And then the more you romance that story, the more you spend time with it, the more you start to shift and act as if you're that person already. Most athletes have had to do that over and over and over again as they rise up from being the high school champion to the regional champion, to the national champion, to the international champion, to the Olympic gold medalist. They're constantly looking at the next iteration of themselves, most of the time in disbelief originally, but then they're 4%, they get a little better. And that's why athletes continue to grow and go into a new area of competition that's a little bit bigger and better than them to find the next version of themselves.
Right.
Make sense?
Yeah.
So that's what people should do. If you want to become a better version of yourself, is get into a better arena, be around other people that are getting the result that you want. Have somebody that looks at you and says, you can do this. And then language it in a way that describes you in that position. And then bit by bit, you start to go, oh my God, I remember back then when I was that shy, procrastinating, lazy person. I'm not anymore. I love life. And it might link back to your why and your what and your how or whatever you want to say. But as long as you start to grow and give yourself that next step, like let's say you don't like being a morning person and working out, try walking 1 minute tomorrow, just 1 minute.
Yeah.
Then walk 2 minutes the next day and 3 minutes then. That's doable, right, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then before you know it, within a month, you're walking 30 minutes in the morning, you're getting up 30 minutes earlier, and you tricked yourself into it. And now, if people that work out know this, is you don't feel like working out, you say, you know what, I'll just go and do 10 minutes. Usually it ends up being 20 or half an hour because you get going. The hardest part of getting to the gym, of working out, is getting to the gym. So it's a process, but reach 4% outside of who you are, and before you know it, you'll incrementally grow from that broke person to that multimillionaire, from that overweight, lazy person to somebody who's in health and loves to eat healthy food and drink water instead of soda, so on and so forth.
There's so many different questions and thoughts racing through my mind as you're talking about this. I want to make sure we hit on a couple of those, so I've written them down. The first one is, you're talking a little bit here of tricking yourself into it, kind of reprogramming your thoughts based on experience. Okay, I'll make this micro step. I'll take a little push into my fear. I'll make a 1 minute walk instead of a 30-minute walk, and I'll grow into it. So there's a little bit of kind of this fake it till you make it kind of thing. But when do you cross over from, and I think this is so relevant for our society today, this next question is that there's a difference between persona and true identity. And I think for some people, they put on the show, they put on the facade of everything is the way it should be. This is how it should be. This is who I am. But they're not really tapping into true identity. So how do you delineate between persona and walking in persona and walking in true identity? We call it created purpose, where you're finding who you are and truly engaging with that versus creating a caricature of yourself and stepping into that.
Yeah, so you got to understand in that context, Michael, that the biggest fear of humans is that they're not enough and they won't be loved.
Right.
And the strategy they use to overcome that is to look good.
Yeah.
Why do women put makeup on? Do you think they love putting on makeup on?
Most no, although there are some.
Yeah. And guys that spend hours and hours grunting in the gym, if you knew for sure that everybody would love you, no matter what your body size or shape, you need to do anything, most people probably, and you'd be fit and healthy and live a long time, I would be willing to say most people probably wouldn't spend time in the gym.
Right.
But that's just a guess on my part.
Yeah.
But it is a strategy to look good. So if you can't look good, then what you do is you start to use props. So you wear clothes, you get a car that makes you look better, you get a house that makes you look better, you get jewelry, so you use external things all in this strategy to look good, to get people's attention. And eventually you start lying to yourself.
Okay.
So the story you tell about the deal that you did at the office now becomes, there was 20 people that you were in competition again
Right.
instead of one.
Right.
And you start to exaggerate and you start to get into that place. So I don't think people do it on purpose. People just do it because it works.
Yeah.
And eventually they just have lost literally their identity.
Yeah.
And what happens when you start to do the personal development is you start to come back to a truer version of your authentic self. And when you do, there's such a relief, because the fear that people live when they've created these masks is that what if somebody finds out that I'm not this great? What if somebody finds out that I'm taking testosterone and that I'm actually bigger because I'm pumping myself up literally? What if somebody finds out that I'm taking these pills that make me feel a little sharper? The people are on all kinds of crap I'm learning in my life that I don't even know about, but there's all kinds of little pills and pharmaceuticals you can get. I recently had a back injury, went to the doctor, and they basically said, "What do you want?"
Wow. That's
And I'm
not
like,
dangerous or anything, right?
Exactly. And so I think that the experience is, try to find people that also want to be on that journey of being authentic and being real and being vulnerable. And when you do that, you have a chance to also do the same thing. You'll have a sense of relief. And then that imposter syndrome and those masks start to come off a little bit more.
Okay.
And you can really start to dial in and go, who am I really at heart? And I'm a warrior at heart. If you want to change radically, I won't swear here, but I will F you up.
Yeah.
I can do that. I have the ability because I grew up in very harsh environments.
Yeah.
Times when I didn't necessarily have food, or times when I was locked out of the house and had to go back in the barn with 22 rats, and I was 8.5 years old. When you go through that kind of thing, you develop a skin that most people never develop.
Right.
But you also find a side of yourself that most people never have a chance to develop either, because we live in a soft world.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. For sure. For sure. So in that search for persona versus identity, go a little bit deeper here. We live in a world that like Instagram is posting your best hits, travel pics, food pics, whatever it is, your self pics, your selfies. How can we start bringing more transparency to that? How can we start saying, okay, you know what? I'm on a good road, but I need to be more transparent and honest in this journey. How can we have those dialogues as a culture, as a people, as people who are trying to get to that next level and say, I'm going to rewrite the story. I'm going to rewrite my future to a different future.
I think it's tribe. Like the tribe I started to Go Abundant 6 years ago. We're a tribe of healthy, wealthy, generous men that choose to lead epic lives. And what we have is a document called a one sheet. And on that one sheet, we have our net worth, our annual income, our passive income, our life happiness index. And we have to defend what we put down on there on a monthly basis, and we share with other tribe members.
Wow.
So it's really hard to hide when every month you're taking your weight and you're doing a health test that lasts 9 minutes and you're posting a score and you're like, okay, so 4 months ago it was 196 in the score. Now it's 192. Then went down to 192. Now it's 168, and your weight has gone up from 160 to 182. And for you to sit there and go, yeah, I'm in great shape.
There's a reality gap there.
Right. So it's really hard to hide, or harder to hide, when you're looking at your numbers. You can't improve what you don't measure, but most people don't measure things in their life. 99% of people don't have a budget. We have people do a budget, and we've had people save as much as $3,000 a month by doing a budget because they had things that was just falling through the cracks, subscriptions they weren't paying attention to, just completely ignorant.
Yeah.
And the average person saves $430. Wow. We teach people negotiation. We do a whole bunch of things that they don't teach you in school, and it makes people seek out and be more vulnerable and say, hey, I feel like I don't have the courage to ask for a raise at my business. What would you recommend? And then people, how about this book? How about that? How about this approach? So people get to ask and people get to give. And therefore, people are more willing to be vulnerable because the guy beside them just got vulnerable. So for us, that's the solution for me, is to get around people that are on that journey.
Well, and that's a perfect segue to the last question for this segment, which is, I wanted to ask you about this journey and how community. You've talked about mentors, now you've talked about your tribe. How community impacts this journey of identity and really rethinking and reshaping where you're going.
Well, probably more than most people think, because the reality is, Michael, is that often, I think we all do it, is you think, okay, you're walking along eating a popsicle and the piece of paper drops down on the floor. And you're thinking, I don't really feel like picking it up. It's blowing in the wind. Run after it like an idiot.
Right.
Nobody will know. And then you see somebody walking by and you're thinking, oh, they must think I'm a bad person. I'm littering. So you run over and you get it.
Yeah.
We often behave not how we are, but how we think other people think we are.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that again. We don't behave how we are. We behave how we think other people think we should behave based on what we think they think we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how much does your community impact you? A heck of a lot.
Yeah.
So you want to surround yourself with people that see the higher version of yourself and have this positive expectancy that you play full out in life.
Yeah.
That you're playful, or that you're cheerful, or that you're fun or funny or generous. Whichever way you want to show up in life, if you don't have people that are sharing those values, you're pretty much screwed, because the human desire to connect and belong is one of the strongest forces.
Right.
Why do you I just came out from the gym before I got on this call here, and I'm at the gym, and it's interesting now because we all wear these earbuds at the gym, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So nobody really talks anymore.
Right.
There's no social aspect. There's barely even a nod anymore, because you're just like, the person's in their own world.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, then why do we all go to the gym? We go because there's still this sense of connection.
Right.
Right? It's not just because the weights are there. You could buy a set of weights at home. You could do push-ups. It's this sense of connection. We crave to be connected. It's a human need and desire. So and this is what we learned in our mastermind groups, you might have heard, there's coaching, which works.
Right.
Have you ever heard of accountability partners?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, I call bullshit on that.
Okay.
That doesn't work, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Let's say you and I are accountability partners.
Yeah.
And we meet every Wednesday at 10 a.m. for an hour and go over our goals and talk about our things we need help with.
Okay.
Well, in 2 weeks, you're on a plane flying to do an event and speak somewhere, and you're like, Rock, I'm sorry I can't make it. We'll skip this week. I'll talk to you next week.
Okay.
I'm like, cool, no problem. And then next week, my kids have a soccer tournament for the whole day. It's a special year-ending thing. And I'm like, dude, it's a soccer tournament. I'm the coach. I got to skip it. And the next week, one of your friends is in the hospital and you're racing over to support them. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, it just falls apart.
It falls apart because life happens.
Yeah.
So what we do is we have groups of 6 people.
Okay.
So while you're on the plane and I'm at the soccer tournament, there's still 4 or 5 people meeting in that group. And at any given time in a year, 1 or 2 people miss, 6 or 8 of the 52 events, but you're never going to have less than 4 people show up for that accountability call.
Right.
And what's the other piece is the positive peer pressure.
Okay.
If you're going to tell me that you have a goal to lose 20 pounds and that you're going to take measurable steps to achieve it, I'm going to hold you accountable, because culturally, that's what we want. If I don't hold you accountable, when I set a goal, you're not going to hold me accountable, because we'll both let each other off the hook.
Right. Right.
But if we agree that we're a tribe, we're a force for good, and that when you tell me you want to achieve something, it's up to me to hold you to it, to support, encourage, and challenge you, and that I expect the same thing, now we have a pure group of people that are going to charge toward their goals, because nobody wants to be left behind. And that, my friend, is the secret sauce.
So good. So good. As we wrap up this segment, can you remind people again how they can find and connect with you?
Yeah, rockthomas.com. Grab my book and start your journey of transformation of the words that follow I am, that follow you. Choose a new identity, and it's 100% free. I'm actually coming out with a renewed edition, the 10-year anniversary.
Wow.
That's coming out in April. It'll be on Amazon, but it's not out yet. And on any, Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, Rock Thomas, you'll find me.
Great. We'll put all of those links in the episode notes, and in a moment we'll be back with Rock Thomas to do our rapid fire questions. So you're ready to chase those big ideas and dreams, but you don't know where to start. Why not head on over to jumblethink.com/guides to download one of our free guides to help you on the journey of turning those dreams and ideas into reality. Guides like The Dreamer's Guide to Micro Experiments or How to Know When You've Found Your Dream. It's easy to do and it's completely free. So head on over to jumblethink.com/guides to download your free guides today. We also want to thank our sponsors for today's episode, Mighty Travels and OpportunityInChina.com. Here's a little bit more from our friends over at Mighty Travels. I don't know about you, but I love to travel. I just don't like looking through all the websites to find the right fares to the right locations that I want to travel to. Well, our friends over at MightyTravels.com are helping you get better rates to the places you want to travel, often saving up to $190 per ticket. You should check out MightyTravels.com/jumblethink to learn more about how you can use their service to get the right trips booked for you at incredible rates. So swing on over, check it out, MightyTravels.com/jumblethink. We also want to thank our friends over at OpportunityInChina.com for sponsoring today's episode. Here's a little bit more about them. Have you been looking for a way to change your career or social prospects? Do you see the world around you changing and haven't quite figured out what path you should take? You are not alone in seeking opportunity. Visit OpportunityInChina.com for access to scholarships to attend university in China, or if you have a bachelor's degree already, OpportunityInChina.com provides access to jobs in the educational sector all across China. Now, working in China is not only often well paid, but it will place you among 1/5 of the world's population, boosting your social network, bringing you more deeply into the story of globalization, and opening doors you never knew existed. Seize your opportunity now. Visit their website for more information at OpportunityInChina.com. By the way, they have a great podcast. Simply search for Opportunity in China Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Now let's jump back into today's episode. We are back with Rock Thomas. Rock, are you ready for rapid fire questions?
Let's do it. Rock and roll, baby.
All right. As a child, what did you want to do when you grew up?
I wanted to be a fireman. Cliche, but fireman, yeah.
What is one tip you'd give somebody with a big idea and dream and they don't know where to start?
You know, the way I answer that question is whatever you're doing right now, do it like your life depended on it. Just show up early, stay late, give it 100%. I have dozens of times when I just showed up and gave it 100% and somebody noticed it and they gave me another opportunity. You'll create your own opportunities by sweeping floors like your life depended on it.
Wow. What is one big lie about entrepreneurship you want to break?
I don't think everybody's for entrepreneurship. I think there's some people that need to be a co-pilot, not the pilot. And I think you should really decide whether you're that person that solves problems around you. I've almost universally interviewed entrepreneurs, and most of them have had paper routes or shoveled, lawns, shoveled sidewalks when they were young. They did something. They had a lemonade stand. I think it's almost happens at a young age.
Yeah.
And it kind of grows over time. If you weren't solving problems, before you were 20, chances are you'll probably work for somebody else. That's my guess.
Yeah, I think that's a fair guess. What is one change you'd like to see in the world?
Wow. There's so many, but I think that I wish that there would be better education of soft skills in school.
Yeah.
So things like communication, budgeting, decision-making, goal setting, things like that, because I think we're doing our children a disservice in giving them the skills that we give them.
Yeah. Maybe teach things that they'll have to use every day. I mean, radical idea there for sure.
Exactly.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I think that it's changed and evolved over time, but the real hope that I had for people is that when they've had the chance to interact with me, that I gave them what my mentor gave me was I let them see a side of themselves they didn't know they had.
Wow.
So they're like, whoa, Rock was the one that reminded me I could do X, Y, Z, or he gave me that insight. And I think I have a gift for that, is to see the potential in people. I'm a bit optimistic. Sometimes it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
But I would say that would probably be it.
I heard a little bit of Canadian come out there.
Yeah, it's
little
there.
Z action. Where do you find inspiration?
I find inspiration in challenge.
Okay.
I have to say that when things get difficult, I tend to excel.
Okay.
So I would say that when a lot of people are like, this will never work, or it's going to be too difficult, that's when I kind of roll up my sleeves and I'm like, all right, let's get going. So that's definitely one spot.
So it sounds like as you get deeper into the fire, things get, you turn on more.
Yeah, I would say that when most people are about to give up, that's when I find my fifth gear.
Wow. Now for you, what is one book you think every dreamer and entrepreneur should read, and why?
I would go with The Principles by Ray Dalio, because I think that this guy is so systematically smart that if you were to follow some of the principles he has in there, you would dramatically, you would make a lot less mistakes.
And how do you define success?
I would say that probably when you fall in love with who you are.
Okay.
And you accept who you are, and each day, no matter what happens, you're like cool with who you are. I would say that's probably a really great place to be. I'm still working on that one.
What is one trend you are currently excited about?
Gosh, these are good questions. A trend I'm certainly excited about. I would say for me in my world, the trend that I'm excited about is being around people that are craving enlightenment. I think there's a higher level of consciousness around it. People are more open to it. And I'm hoping that trend continues. I still think there's a lot of people that have no clue about it, but I feel like there's more people that do, and makes it easier for me to stay on that path.
Yeah. What is one habit you find helpful in your life as an entrepreneur?
It's got to be the evening and morning rituals,
okay.
Michael. If you don't have an evening ritual, then you struggle with your morning ritual. And if you don't have a morning ritual, you struggle with your day. So I think you've got to have two things, which in the morning is really to agitate your body, to aliven your cells, so you're a little more switched on.
Yeah.
and to spend some time. I think the biggest thing that the average person doesn't do in the morning is spend time visualizing what they want to create or experience. So they just react to the day, and then it's a lottery.
Yeah. Yeah. Responding is never a good place to operate from.
Right.
What is one thing you wish you would have known when you started out?
I wish I would have known that the fast way to success is the slow way. Mm-hmm. And that if you just choose a path and you just stay on it and keep on pecking away, that success is inevitable. I jumped the tracks many times looking for an easier path.
Yeah.
Only to realize that had I just, I kind of stopped 3 feet from gold.
Wow.
So I would say that, find your lane, find what you love, and just stay with it, and you'll just plow your way to success.
If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what do you think you'd be doing?
I'm going to answer it this way, is I would have loved to have been either a musician or an athlete.
Oh, cool.
So I would say those things. I just didn't have a parent that said, hey, go down this path and I'll support you. So I ended up going down a path that could pay the bills.
Yeah. And our final rapid fire question is, what is one dream you are still wanting to fulfill in your own life?
I think it's the same answer, is I'm playing the drums now.
Okay.
And to be able to play in a band and to get paid for it, just because that would prove to me that actually people actually wanted to listen. They weren't just my good friends making me feel good.
Wow. That's a lot of fun. As we wrap up today's episode, we always like to leave our guests have a final thought for our audience. So if you were speaking directly to them, what would you want to say to them today?
I would simply say this, is that there's an event and then there's the meaning that you assign to it. Okay. And most people have not really developed that muscle. So, something happens, you lose the deal or the contract and you get upset. When instead what you could do is you could say, what's great about this? Yeah. When I lost all my hair to alopecia, I said, what's great about this? And I thought, I'll never have a bad hair day again in my life.
Wow.
So I think just ask yourself better questions when things are going sideways. look for the gift within it, the blessing. And it's tough, you know.
Yeah.
It's really, really tough sometimes. You feel like, geez, somebody screwed me over, or that this is going to be really hard to overcome. But you can't change it. You can only change the meaning you assign to it. So you might as well get good at that.
Wow. Rock, it's been a lot of fun having you on the podcast. Thanks for taking time out, sharing your story, and giving us some really good encouragement and tips that we can apply to our life of chasing dreams and ideas.
My pleasure. Thank you for asking such great questions.
Once again, we want to thank today's guest, Rock Thomas, for taking time out and sharing his story. Make sure to connect with him. You can find all of his links in the episode notes. Friday's episode is a Friend Friday, and our guest is our good friend, Eric Nevins. So make sure to check out Friday's episode with Eric. Once again, thanks to our sponsors for today's episode, OpportunityInChina.com and Mighty Travels. Go connect with what they're doing. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to encourage you to get out there, chase those dreams, and change the world around you.
Vous êtes une autre personne. Les mères de famille, les enfants, peuvent également prendre un moment revitalisant. Dans quelques mois, lorsque vous aurez bien saisi la technique et que vous serez maître de votre corps, vous pourrez vous décontracter même en travaillant.